Yeah, I think real estate is not get rich quick. It's get rich slow. And so I think we've got that mindset. We've got a long-term mindset to how we're building our business, and the idea, hey, we we can do this for the next 30 years. I turned 40 next week. I intend to do this forever. It's fun. So we're not in a hurry to kind of get in and get out of the business or of the deals. I think, being kind of disciplined a little bit and saying, hey, this is what we're setting up for, being pretty clear about this is a deal in this area. We think it's a 7 to 10 year play or a 10 plus year play. And then just kind of holding to that as far as kind of making money, like it, again, we're thinking long-term. So we're not trying to get in, get out and try to make a bunch of money on the front end for us. We've got asset management fees, kind of keeps the lights on. And we look at, like, we're planting seeds, every time we buy a deal. I joke, we bought this deal last year. It's going to be at least a 10-year hold. We kind of got a one partner, sort of a 1031 JV type deal. And I joke, like, that's one of my kids' college accounts. Like, I've got a 6-month hold. It could be that kid's college account. I don't really worry too much about the exit and kind of when does that happen. Just don't force it. And again, I think a lot of that's the confidence of, we know we're in a really good market, that everybody is growing, is going to be there. And it's the upside is there. Today it's certainly going to be there tomorrow.
I think it's a good spin on it, right? Because we differ from most is, yes, you make money as the deal performs, but we put a lot of our own capital into our deals. So, I think in every one of our deals, if you look at it, we're 20, 30, 40, if not 50, 60% of the capital sometimes. So it's a little different where we're not just waiting, we're waiting for our money to make money. And then you're also getting the asset management fees, which, like you said, they just keep the lights on. It doesn't, you're not going to get rich quick. And I think if you're getting into real estate to get rich quick, you're in the wrong business, especially given that, where the market is today and the last 10 years is what's happened. Can you speak to, a little bit of a longer term hold, what the capital, like the intent, what's the capital intensiveness, if that even makes sense, behind, owning a deal a little bit longer term? Because a lot of people going with a, relatively lean budget to, maximize upside as quick as possible. But, if you own a deal for 10 years, you have more HVAC replacements, especially in an area like Austin, Texas, where it's hot, or, in those areas. Can you speak to how you guys may look at a deal a little different and say, okay, we're going to go a little bit longer, we're going to have to bring more money in, or is there a capital, preservation plan day one put in place for the longevity?
Yeah, I think it starts with the type of deal you're looking at, the type of asset, and one of our sort of focuses, we're the two things we're really clear about. And when we go buy a deal, it's got to be core MSA Austin or San Antonio. So we're not looking too far outside of that and kind of tertiary or outskirts. It needs to be part of the MSA, and it needs to be kind of Class B or better. And we really kind of stick to that, where we're not, if it's a rough C deal. We've written articles about this. That's sort of the common value add, right? If you're looking for that 3-year plan, buy a C class deal and then convert it into a B class. I think that, number one, that's really, really hard to do right now. At the end of this 10-year cycle, every C class deal has been bought and tried to convert into a B. So if there's anything left, it's probably really, really a C class and maybe a D. That's going to be a really rough deal, and you can hit a home run on that, but it's a lot of risk. You can get caught with your pants down, your bridge loans comes due, pandemic hits, you don't get your value add. I think that adds a lot of risk, and we're not willing to kind of take that risk. So it starts with, we are really looking at, B class better deals. So going in, you got a pretty good idea of it's what you're buying, and you kind of set your capital aside for that. And so we're not coming into buying a deal that's 50% occupied and have to put, 50% down as far as our renovation budget. Our typical renovation budget is maybe 10% of the purchase price, maybe. We want to take something that's pretty good and make it a little bit better. Again, goes back to that longer term mentality and kind of what our goals are. I tell our investors all the time, we're getting to know people, said, hey, you're not going to see the highest marketed returns from us. Let's be clear. Like, I'm not ashamed of that. We're looking at everything on a risk adjusted basis. We've got somewhat of a unique point of view and a thesis that we really believe in. I'm not a 10 or 12% IRR and a super solid market is a really good deal. And there's not as much risk. So we can underwrite for that. And then, longer term, there's going to be HVAC replacements. You have capital reserves, lender reserves that you can tap into for that stuff. But then you also account for it. I think typically we say 25% of the AC units on any given deal we're going to replace in the first 2 years, no matter what. If we get into DD and it looks worse, we may have to up that some, but it's part of what we underwrite too. And you kind of take that longer term. Let's maybe take a little bit longer view of upfront the work we need to go do on some of the exteriors of some of the things that are deferred, and spend the money because we know we're going to bear the fruit of that, 5 years from now, 7 years from now.
So I love that because, we've bought some very heavy lifting, very rough deals. And yes, there's risk associated with, and knock on wood, the market's been very good to us. So I have no complaints. But, one of the best deals that I've ever invested in personally was not a syndicated deal. It was our own property, and it was it's a 2003 built deal. There's not a stitch of headaches whatsoever. Is it the 50, 20, 30, 6x multiplier? No, it's not. But there's something to be said about peace of mind, where when you go to the office, you're not worrying about, we had our Monday morning call the other day, and my partner was like, it just seems like every day, there's a fire, there's a shooting, there's a murder. It seems like that happens more there. You guys probably, it happens everywhere, but it's probably less headache driven and more, we're buying really good piece of dirt. And I say it all the time. I can show you a 30 on paper, but there's something to be said about a 12. And I think that is something that most people don't want to own. And I think everybody wants to put on paper a huge return. I think you guys are doing it really good. And it's awesome to see, because, Reed and I, when we met, similar times, and, it's awesome to see that model does work if done properly. So I give you guys a ton of credit.
Yeah. Well, I think it's about, you got to know your market. I think you got to be true to what you are as an operator. I think I walk on to some C-class deals and I'm like, I'm not comfortable here. And there's a risk, and I think that was one of the things when we started raising money out from outside folks is just, you've got to take the responsibility as the operator. And, if you're going to go deliver a 30, there's a good chance you're going to swing and miss and it might be a 0. I think we've kind of taken a more conservative approach. Baseball analogy, my job, I want to go hit singles and maybe stretch those into doubles. We're not swinging for the fences.
I love that.
So how does that conversation go with investors? Because I know a lot of times we get beat back on two things. One, the time frame. So many people that get in contact with us I would say the majority are looking for those short-term flips. And a lot of times they are looking for, more risk with more upside. And they really only care about the numbers you put on paper in the back of the book. They don't look at location. They just don't look at that stuff hard enough. Some people do. And then some people have the weirdest sticking points ever. Do you just have those conversations and the people that are looking for that you don't even try? Or is there a conversation you have where you can kind of massage your message and people start to understand?
But I think from a sort of marketing standpoint, that's kind of, what my background was. I mean, number one, we're very consistent with our message, so every time I'm on a podcast, we talk to anybody. I mean, look, it's Central Texas, it's B+ and better. It's good, solid stability, risk adjusted returns. And then that message goes out, if people are coming into us, like they've seen that message. So there's no misconception about kind of who we are and what our focal point is. So we don't get a ton of pushback and say, that's not enough, that's not high enough. And if we do have that conversation, that's fine. Like there's different types of investors for different types of deals. We make introductions to people all the time, to other operators in other parts of the country or have different, models. So it's not a big, we don't get a ton of pushback on it. I think frankly, people, and I'll ask a question as on a sort of get to know you call with an investor. So look, if I could give you a 10% return in Austin, in a really good location, or you could look at a 20% return in Amarillo, pick on a tertiary market, not a ton of population growth. Like you tell me, what would you rather have? And most of the people that I'm on the phone with will say, I'll take the 10 in Austin. And that may be kind of self-selecting because it's sort of an inbound marketing funnel, but we don't get a ton of pushback because I think we're like, that's who we are. I mean, Wildhorn delivers, 12% returns in Austin and San Antonio. We're not trying to do anything else. And on a longer term, that longer horizon, I think is another factor of that, where there's decent cash on cash and there's security and safety here. You're buying in a market you believe in that everybody's talking about. And I think that's a huge part of of what we're building and kind of, I'm super lucky to be born and raised in Austin. If I was from like Pittsburgh or something, I don't know if I'd be as excited and be banging that drum as loudly. Like, I'm really lucky to be here. It's growing like crazy. It's number one on all these lists, and that doesn't seem to be stopping. So let's leverage that. And as the market evolves, we'll continue to kind of be opportunistic and find good opportunities here. But there's a seem inherent sort of security by being local and being in a market that has the fundamentals that we do have.
So I think that's key, right? And probably one of the biggest reasons for success. Born, raised, lived in one of the greatest areas, because we get the pushback, not pushback, but we live in New York, right? We're 30 minutes outside of Manhattan, which has just exploded. We can't buy what we want because it's extremely difficult, and not that we can't. It's not what. There's a lot of risk associated with the deals today at a 3 cap or a 2 cap or a 4 cap, right? And it's just, leverage is tough or whatever. And we get investors ask us all the time, like, why Jacksonville? Why these areas? And we give them the answer like that. And they say, well, where, if I want to invest somewhere, where do I go? And, I tell people, look in your backyard. There's nothing wrong with not investing in your backyard. But if you happen to be in a great area where you've seen, felt, and lived it, that's awesome. I mean, that's great. I think the one question I have, piggybacking off that, being that you are local and that you have the experience managing, you guys use third party. Have you thought about vertically integrating that because you've done it before, or because you've done it before, you don't want to do it?
It's constant debate. I don't want to do it, and I think Reed's a little bit more inclined to do it. And some of that's just kind of our personal interests and skill sets. He's a little bit more operationally focused. I think right now it's not the highest and best use of our time. And, it's a really, really hard business. And it's, a lot of HR and a lot of payroll and the people management. And that's not something I'm really good at. Not something that I enjoy. It's part of the reason we've built this business to be small. We are very clear. We're not trying to build a 50-person company with an office floor. I don't want to manage people. So I think that's a part of that, and kind of recognizing, like, what do you enjoy? What are you good at? And kind of building the business to support that. But I think there's really good third-party management companies. And still, I do think being local allows us to manage those groups, a little bit more tightly, and can pop by and talk to them, and, kind of you're sort of in the same spaces. So, but it's not, at least today, it's not a big focus. It's something we talk about. I kind of joke with him. I was like, man, go nuts. You got my support if you want to build one out.